Well, we're delighted to welcome Ashwini Shan to the MMM booth for this event, the Mujeres a Obra event. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Ashwini is the general manager of KISANY, and that KISANY is a great social enterprise that is working with and supporting mothers and grandmothers at their two ateliers in Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda. But they create jobs basically, and helping the women gain skills, which gives them the strength to be able to improve their lives. What's really interesting for us is that KISANY shares the MMM belief that everyone, especially mothers, should have access to education and decent work. And for more than 15 years, and Ashwini will tell us in a minute, they've served this purpose by offering training and work to many women. Ashwini, thanks so much for giving us your time. I've done this little short intro. Could you give us some more background to this really wonderful social enterprise called KISANY?
Well, thank you so much, Shanaz. And with pleasure. There's little I think I can add to your great introduction already. So KISANY Social Enterprise is essentially has a very, very interesting history. It was born as an NGO project actually from one of MMM's member associations, En Avant les Enfants, with the objective to really give women in a situation of need, post-volcanic eruption in Congo, work. So it was an immediate quick fix reaction to say, let's give embroidery skills, people will make something and will sell it in Europe, etc. And at the time, actually sell it in Belgium, which is where the company is based out of. So starting from there in 2004, it evolved to a situation where more and more artisans joined the atelier. Another atelier was started in Kigali, to a point where it grew, and with it, the artisans stayed and grew their skills, to a point where it was beyond just very simple items for the sake of buying something to support a cause, but creating really beautiful pieces that people come to love and treasure and keep and come back asking for more. So at a certain point, it came to En Avant les Enfants realization, and otherwise externally was also well, hang on, this project is generating its own revenue. Why don't we now move it out of the NGO model and look at it to see if it can stand on its own? Because if it becomes a self-sustaining model, we're talking about business for good with ateliers that are able to stand independently. And that means they can work with KISANY, they can work with other partners across the world and grow independently without having any reliance on external funds. And really be a showcase and testament to not just the training of creating the work, but how to manage a business in itself as well. So this is where a new team on the KISANY side came in, very, very interested to grow this kind of model to be independent with a social mission, so business essentially for good in everything that it does. And that's pretty much how KISANY has evolved in the last few years to be able to be, I would say, a very extremely high-end home linen brand where everything is handmade with dignity. And our objective is to make sure we give as many artisans, primarily women, access to work and education. So that is how, a little bit about how we've evolved to where we are and why we feel like we're in a very good position today, because we have a wonderful set of artisans. We have an extremely passionate team and amazing clients, all showing that business for good is not just a theory, but really something that can be done in practice.
If I could just jump in there, absolutely. The women that are working at these ateliers, their lives must be dramatically changed, because, as you say, they now have an opportunity to be independent, autonomous, earn a buck, and make a difference. Well, obviously, by selling on, attention comes to the countries that they are working from, but more so that they can actually bring a change for their own lives and their families' lives. Talk to us about the impact on the lives of these women, because a lot of them have had very hard journeys.
Yes, it's quite inspirational when we are on the ground and we're having discussions with the women. They're extreme, the strength is amazing to see. But essentially, the communities that we work with are very poor, and we're working in violent and conflict-related zones. That's just the truth of the matter. And in these kind of situations, in places and communities where gender parity is very low, violence against women is extremely high, we see that peace gets threatened because the role of the mother is actually, and the role of women and the role of the mother is essentially really reduced. A woman is unable to bring about a safe familial environment that generates peace. And this perpetuates a whole cycle of violence and poverty. And that's why coming in with the work side, we can see a lot of women, and especially mothers, go from extremely hard situations where violence has been effectively used against them, neglect, and lack of rights. Women in these kind of situations who have been removed from school, had children very young, had their pregnancies or their children been refused by their families, being in all sorts of extremely difficult situations, coming to a point where they're now making their own money, where they're the ones who pay the school fees. They buy the food and the groceries. They provide for different things as well across the family.
They hold the purse strings because of this financial autonomy that they've got.
Exactly. And it's not a one-off. It's they have skills and capabilities that they're confident that they can keep being what we call the chef de famille. So that is, and we see that transform that these roles on these women who've unfortunately been victims, how with little work and access to education, they've been able to grab that opportunity and really turn it around, where we have, like, some of them have gone back to school. And not just beyond primary education, they've gone on to get, some have said, well, you know what, I don't want to be an embroiderer anymore, I want to go into accounting. Okay, we can sponsor that and do that. So what we've seen is really, it's amazing to see what transformation can really happen. Absolutely. And how this really drives it. And what's really, really important here to say is that while KISANY, our job is to give work, regular work in a safe, dignified space, which we do, we don't think this transformation really would have been possible if we didn't have En Avant les Enfants creating the community and the infrastructure for these women and mothers to feel safe, so that they feel like this is now a network in a community. You know, my kids can go to school, I can get scholarships, I can get microfinancing to build a home, my employment is continued, I can go to the atelier and work and look outside, out there, my child is playing, it's not a problem. So it's really something that we see that not just the artisans work really hard for, but it's a community, and it's not just about work. So there's many different players where we work together to change a mindset and give opportunities and give really these women, for lack of, it's just maybe a strange way of saying this, but the opportunity to take these chances. It's one thing to give a chance to go back to school, but it's another thing to create an environment where it's possible.
Absolutely. So these women for whom these opportunities have been created are to a great degree mothers. They're going back to school, they are working, they're keeping their families going. You know, we're back to the women, the mothers doing it all, then going home and caring for their children as well. Is this the kind of scenario that you are seeing?
Yes, I mean, we can generalize, but more or less, yes, this is the kind of situation we're seeing. And this is interestingly why KISANY is actually in a position with these, with artisans with skills, they stay with the project. They grow with the project, and because of the whole community aspect and everything, because it's not just being able to give them work, but it's giving them the opportunity to take these chances. So we've seen that these women have been with the project for over 10 years, because it's something that helps them also balance something that's quite tricky, you know, all the children, the home and work in a very safe space.
So, so as a blueprint, the Rwanda and the DR Congo ateliers are an excellent, if you like, showcase. Would you consider taking Kisani further afield? Because there must be so many places globally, and the Kisani name is becoming very global. You're not just selling in Brussels and Europe, you're selling everywhere. So the product, the name is getting known globally. Would you scale up to take it elsewhere where you feel women need this support mechanism?
That's actually a really interesting question. One word, yes. But with a caveat that it needs to be done carefully. We take the commitment to taking on an atelier is a big one. It's a partnership. It's something that we're really going to have to work hard and grow together. So it's very important to say that, well, we could easily go add another 20 ateliers where we feel people need the work. But if people are leaving, there's no support network, etc., like what we have in Congo, in DRC, and Rwanda, then we know it's not a model that's very sustainable. So it's very important to make sure that there's a community that maybe through a partner NGO, and there's an atelier where people are interested to learn, and then we will definitely do that. And we're always looking to see who else is out there, which would be a good fit for us as well. So simply said yes, but we're careful with making this commitment because it's a long-term one for us.
But I just touched very briefly on the scaling up and how you know, the name Kisani is known as far afield as the Middle East and not just Europe. How did you do that? Because there must be that fine, you know, and this event that Mujeres a Obra, for which we're having this discussion, this conversation, it's all about, you know, mothers and work. And I'd be very interested to know the scaling up of a business from your perspective, because you're a young mother yourself. You've got kids, right?
Yes.
So it's all about work, work, work. No, but so I want you to tackle it in two ways. One, from your own personal perspective as a mother and working on a project that is really, you know, done this kind of a lift. And also, how have you managed to take the Kisani name further afield, international?
So I'm going to tackle the second one first, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
So we have a pretty young team coming in the last few years, but we are very lucky, very fortunate in a sense that Kisani has been there for since 2004. And it has really grown to a scale because of its founders, an extremely dedicated set of volunteers. So its two founders, Manuela del Mamal and Isabel de Gris, who have grown it over the last 5 to 10 years. What they did was build really a network of volunteers who are also, they are mothers, and the volunteers are also mothers, who have donated, for lack of better words, so much of time that I would say would be priceless to build and grow this name through their network and showcasing the product. So what has really happened is that across the years, we've had people coming in saying, well, I'd like to have a trunk show event or talk about Kisani with people that I know. Maybe in my home in Italy or in London or in Palm Beach in the US.
Yeah.
And that, which is all places where we've had different events. And through that, people have, it's been expanded and expanded and expanded to show what the work that is possible and talk about the project. And as a result of that, we actually have a whole set of customers from across the world, where we have clients buying from us from Hong Kong to Brussels, where we are based, and of course in Africa as well. So we have these clients really because of our founders, the starting point because of our founders and the volunteers who put in so much time, effort, and passion, and they still do today, to talk about this name with people and expand it through word of mouth. So now that's like one stage of growth and development that's really built a lot of credibility and a lot of loyal customers. But luckily, because the products have also been really nice, these clients have bought something and they enjoyed the product, they enjoyed the story, they come back to us and say, well, I would like to buy something else and talk about it with my other friends. And we find that really growth it's not really a very typical growth strategy in that sense, but the growth has really happened because of very, very passionate clients who are very keen to talk about KISANY and spread the word of mouth about what that brand needs. And also volunteers who have talked about KISANY as well.
And of course, all of them become a support mechanism. And the word of mouth from client to client, from volunteers to volunteers.
Exactly. And it's actually, we become a community. We have the community of our citizens in DRC and Rwanda. We have the community in Belgium with the team, and we have a community of volunteers and clients across the world. We have clients who will ask us saying, hey, when are you going to Congo next? Would I be able to come? And they will come for the trip, and you will find them embroidering in a corner and talking to the team, etc. And it's also important, you know, in a world today where people are increasingly trying to understand, what am I really buying? Do I really need it? Where is it even coming from? And being able to see that and see the impact of something happen and really changing someone's life, it's quite a transformative experience. So we find that our clients and our volunteer network are the best spokespeople we have.
Okay, so on to the next point, which is yourself as a mother and juggling motherhood with work, with ambitions, with a career. Tell us something about your own experience.
Ooh, that's an interesting one. So my background is actually coming from large enterprises and large retail companies, both bigger companies across Korea, Luxembourg, etc., before coming over to KISANY. And I can say that balance is a really tricky word when it comes to being a working mom, in terms of understanding how much time you get to spend with your children versus work. But it's an ongoing process. It's never really something that's static. And working with a team and in an organization that understands that and values that is life-changing. It creates an environment. That's why I really felt that I should say it. Like, it's an opportunity to take an opportunity. It creates an environment that is supportive. And we work with a lot of mothers in Belgium as well, myself and the team as well. And it is really something that it's an interesting balance to have. And it's wonderful to be able to work in an organization where we appreciate that. Taking your baby to work is not really, no one would bat an eyelid. In the ateliers, you have a lot of the embroiders who come in with their little ones strapped to their back. And the office here, it's not a problem to put up a little playmat and say, like, okay, my baby's going to be here for a little while we do this. It's completely open. And I think I love that. I love the flexibility and the openness that it's just that we all play so many different roles. And as a mother who's working, we have some additional roles that we have to play. And to be able to do that very dynamically in an organization that supports that makes the difference for me personally.
And how do you think things have been in the last sort of year and a half since COVID? The restrictions, the lockdowns, so much talk of mothers having to do everything, you know, juggle the baby on the back, be on the laptop, send the emails, run down to walk the dog, cook the food, keep a career going. And it, of course, through the whole issue of the unpaid care work that mothers do and the importance of recognizing that. And then the other issue of the importance of fathers coming to the plate as well. How is that impacted, or what kind of a part has that played both in KISANY's mothers at the ateliers and closer to home with your team and KISANY vis-a-vis, yeah, you guys, yourself?
Well, I think with the ateliers, I mean, it's been an extremely unreal, surreal year and a half, I think, for the world. And for the teams in both Congo and Rwanda, unfortunately in Congo, there's also been the Ebola crisis. So they have been battling different crises in terms of health and what that means in a different way for some time now. So this has been, unfortunately, not really a huge change in certain things. So we have changed about how work is done, where the moms and the artisans are asked to come to the atelier twice a week, pick up the work and work from home. That has been a model that we've had for a really long time, because we cannot expect these women who have so many different things to do to come and sit in an atelier all day and work for 5 days a week. So this is how we do. So we understand the different roles that they play and the different responsibilities they have. So that we've continued during COVID times, of course, and we found very little impact in that sense to the artisans and how they work. The main thing is that, so that's it. And it's a similar situation in Rwanda as well. So from how we've been managing work and livelihoods, a lot of these women have, we continue with this model, and there's been additional work by Un Enfant des Enfants and us as well to give additional support. Because in these communities, it's not really, and I think it's very community driven. Having a family and raising a child, it does take a village. So there is a community supporting this. And there always has been a community supporting this. And it's in times like these that you just rely more on your community. So it's our job to make sure that the community is also bolstered up, so that if there's additional help needed, the community itself can step in to help that mom out. And that has really worked out for the ateliers in a good way, and we will continue to keep that going. Over here in Belgium, it's a little bit different in Europe, because it's less community driven in terms of raising a family. And that is something that is very interesting to see. It's also very, very challenging as we see different families managing everything from home. I think personally, we do it with a lot of patience and a lot of understanding, and this realizing that, well, let's look at what priorities really are. If, okay, on the work side, it's important, but does something need to be tabled? Okay, go focus on what your child needs right now, because your child needs it right now, and that's the priority. And I think that's definitely something at KISANY we're fortunate enough to be able to do, because we're small, and maybe it's also because of the mentality we have as a team and our social mission. So no one's in it really to, in this kind of business, to grow in a completely one-minded way, one-track mind, if that comes across clearly. So I think that being very supportive is very helpful. Like I myself had a baby about 5 months ago in the middle of COVID, and the team has been extremely supportive to understand, like, okay, well, being pregnant during COVID is not really the most fun experience, or having a newborn. So we have just reprioritized to understand what needs to be done personally and professionally. I mean, very transparent with everyone, and use each other more as a community and a network to rely on. Saying, okay, I need help with this, and being open and transparent about it. And increasingly talking to moms working from home with small kids, like you say, between making dinner, helping with homework, being teachers, etc. I think it really comes down to a question of like work in terms of questioning, what you really want to do in terms of this, and prioritizing. And it's, if anything at all, it's been a year and a half of experience to do that.
And of course, as we found out, from Antonio Guterres at the UN to anybody that has written, mothers have been at the forefront. You know, mothers who happen to be nurses, who happen to be doctors, who happen to be mothers and professionals, have kept societies and communities standing up and keeping families as well rooted
Yes.
and going.
Yes, indeed.
Just talking about the mothers that you work with, as a sort of final thought now, what do they tell you? What kind of women are there? Give us an insight into, you know, the characteristics. Are they outspoken? Are they, you know, to give us a feeling of, we can see them sitting there embroidering, because obviously that's something that comes naturally to them. But do you personally talk to some of these women, to these mothers, younger mothers, older mothers?
Oh yes, definitely. I mean, we don't. Yes, firstly, yes, we do. Not the whole team every day, but more often than not, to quite a bit of the team. It's mothers come in all shapes and sizes with all sorts of personalities, and that's exactly what we see in our ateliers as well. It takes a range. It's a range of different, amazing, wonderful, strong women, really. But what we hear is there's a lot of pride when we meet them and they tell us about their children. There's a lot of pride in that, and that's really, really something that we see is constant, and that's wonderful to see. And the other thing, oh,
No, I just quickly wanted to, while you were talking about the mothers, I wanted to bring up your website for all our viewers that are watching you, kisany.com. If you go there, you will see some amazing photographs, imagery. But look, you know, the first time I got on your website, I thought, look at that. That's just the artisanship, the artistry of these bespoke linens, the, you know, the craftsmanship. And there they are, you know, dedicated to being skilled and to being financially independent artisans. And there's the story of Kisany. So I just wanted to share that. And there's so much more, but I'm sorry, I jumped in without warning you I was doing that. Sorry, keep going, keep going.
no, that's really lovely. Thank you for that. We meet all sorts of mothers, and like I was saying, pride in their children is definitely something there. And there's this one particular story, like when I was there a few years ago, and haven't been in the last 1.5 years, unfortunately, where this one particular lady was explaining that she was not very new, but she's been around for about 3.5 to, well, now almost 5 years at the atelier. And she was saying that before, when there was a family meeting, she would either not be included or she would have to sit on the floor. And she was just said, like, okay. And then she's like, but now I get a chair. She was just like, I bring in the school fees. I get a chair. I'm heading this discussion now.
So before she sat on the floor, subservient. Now she says, I'm sitting on a chair, so she goes and gets a chair. See this?
Exactly. No, she's given a chair. She's given a chair. She doesn't have to, because she's paying the school fees. So she gets a chair. She literally gets a seat at the table. And that story really just stuck with me because it was something really simple where she clearly could see the difference that she was making and her own power with what she could do. And that was just, that pretty much sums up why we do this and what keeps us going every day. So if you're having a bad day, for me, I personally think about the story and this particular lady, and well, that made a difference.
As you put it, I think in one of your articles, transforming lives stitch by stitch. I love that quote. And the transformation of lives, whether it's one, whether it's five, whether it's 130, whether it's 1,000, begins with a stitch, a step, and how much of that is dependent on autonomy, independence, financial independence, the power that these women must feel once they are educated, stroke skilled, stroked, trained.
Yes, and I think you touched on something interesting. We work with around 120 artisans right now, and most of them, as you said, mothers and also grandmothers as well. And what we see is that they come from, as you said, very difficult circumstances, but because some of them have gone back to school, they've had the training, they're working, their children go to school and university.
Amazing.
Completely. And then the impact just snowballs from this to over 1,000, almost 1,300 people being affected in a really positive way. And that we feel, and that is why we feel like working with mothers really makes a difference, because they really, I mean, giving them the importance, the role, and the capability and the power to do what they need to do helps steer families and lives in such an amplified way.
Wow. I have so many other questions, but you've sort of done such a beautiful wrap there. Just one final thought. So KISANY's motivation is there, objective is there. Where does it go from here, actually? You know, we've talked about scaling up and being cautious and needing the support community of other NGOs potentially to enter. Where does a social enterprise like KISANY go from here?
So I think right now, I think it's an interesting question that we've been like talking about as well. And for KISANY, what we need to do next is get more people to know us, get more people to know what we do and why we do it. Have more people who support us, either by supporting in our events or buying from us and spreading the word. And I think that's where we need, that's our next step to grow in that sense before we add on more ateliers. And why do we say this? It's because we see that, well, with increased work, we have more and more people coming to our ateliers asking for work. And during COVID, we made a very conscious effort. We did not let anybody go without work. We said, no, everybody who is with KISANY, who works in the ateliers, stays. Nobody should have to worry right now about not having work. Everyone supported. And with En Avant les Enfants' support, of course, that's been able to materialize. But now we have more and more people asking, say, would I also be able to work there? And for that, we need to grow and sell more, get more people to know about us and grow in that sense. So I think that's really our next focus area, to really talk to more people a lot of people who are looking for something like what we have, but don't know us yet. So we just need to get to know, get out there a bit more, get our name known and have more people work with us. And then we will go on to the next adventure with potentially a new atelier, etc. So many different options.
Ashwini Shan, really fabulous to get the chance to talk to you. I wish you and your team absolutely heaps of success in getting the name of KISANY Social Enterprise out there more and more, because what you do is invaluable. And I'm sure that all the mothers that you are supporting, the young and the older ones and the grandmothers, thank you from their hearts for the opportunities that you create. So many thanks for joining us, for giving us your time, Ashwini. I know you're very busy, and all the best for the future.
Thank you so much, Shanaz. Thank you.